Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, moms and dads. First of all, I want to say that I really miss doing this class in person, but for the time being, this is where we're at. So hopefully you'll get a lot of good information from this class. My name is Debbie Smith, and I'm an retired occupational therapist, pediatric therapist that have worked with children for over 40 years. But now I love doing this class because I love to teach new moms or any mom about development and what's important and how to play with your baby and some of the things that maybe you don't know or your pediatrician hasn't covered with you. So I have 4 children and 6 grandchildren, so I am surrounded by lots of baby love and love it. So anyway, I do miss seeing you with your babies here though, so hopefully someday we can get back to that. So this class is called Tummy Time, and what I want to do is kind of go over some history of positioning of where we've been and where we are now, of what they're recommending we do with our babies, our newborns, and why it's important, to put your babies on their tummies while they're awake, of course, not on sleep time. Back in 1994, the Academy of Pediatrics recommended that instead of putting your baby to sleep on their tummies, like I did for my children, that you position them on their backs. And what we found was that when they started doing this, when moms and dads started doing this, is that a drop in the SIDS rate by 50%, which is a huge number. So it was important that we get those babies to where they're breathing more freely. I don't understand fully the reason why the drop in the SIDS rate, but we know that it did happen. So, but with our babies on our backs all the time, and either in our backs or in this car seats or a carrier, we have a whole new set of problems. Yes, our babies are healthy, but they're developmentally behind or have a whole new set of problems. We call them container babies. In that they're not allowed to be on their tummies. Well, yes, you can put them on their tummies, but lots of moms just kind of forget that piece. So I want to tell you a little bit about developmentally why it's important and why we should incorporate every day the tummy time and for how long. I'll go over all those specifics, and we'll have some of this on the screen as well, so you don't have to take notes furiously. You can get it copied down later. Okay, so some of the issues that I found when I was working in the clinic with some developmentally behind children, we were seeing, first of all, what we call flathead babies, because they're on their backs all the time, and that pressure, their skulls are very, very soft. And so what we're seeing, sometimes there are some babies with flat heads if they're not positioned in different positions, okay? So we certainly don't want that, because eventually we could have some problems with that. We're also seeing babies, if they're positioned like this in their car seats and their heads always turned to the same side, we get what we call a torticollis, which is a shortening of the muscles on one side and lengthening on the other. And so basically what it is, it's a really stiff neck. And then you have to go to therapy and get that worked out, because certainly we want the muscles in equal length on both sides, so their heads are free to turn from side to side, not just held in one position. So position changes are really critical for babies, especially when they're not able to move around a lot. So you kind of have to be their movement guides through these early stages until they start doing more spontaneous movement. The other thing we're seeing is in babies, when they first come out, they're in a little ball of flexion. So their hands are all fisted up. You're gonna see, because they had a tight space to develop, and their hips are flexed, their knees are flexed, and they're kind of like in flexion. So when you put a baby down like this, right? So they're kind of like still all flexed up, and we need to kind of work out that flexion a little bit, and that's why we go onto the tummies, and I'll go over that in just a minute. So those are some of the reasons. Also, when you have your baby on their tummies, what we begin to see is some more opening of the hands. So if we always have our hands flexed like this, again, the muscles don't get that nice stretch and activation, okay? As well as the tummy muscles, because if they're all flexed, again, what happens to a flexed muscle? It shortens and it's not lengthened. So when we exercise, what we do to prepare for exercise is we lengthen our muscles, we stretch them, right? So that actually activates the muscle to be used. So if those muscles are never stretched and activated, then they get a little bit weaker. You get an imbalance of muscle tone on each side, okay? So, also, when we put our babies on their tummies, they're working against gravity, so they have to work harder to do this. Gravity will tend to pull them down like this, but the babies will eventually start working with their neck muscles. We call it from head to toe development, cephalocaudal. And so they'll start to activate their neck muscles because they want to lift their head up and to turn it to the other side, or they want to lift their head up and see what is around them on the floor. So that's like the first developmental stage. You're going to see this around after 4 or 5 weeks. Babies are going to be able to turn their heads from side to side like this, and then they'll get tired and kind of put it down. So then eventually we're going to see more of the chest lifting up like this, and we're going to see what we call a little propping on our elbows. And that's when you're going to see, that nice pressure on their hands, which is, again, really actually what we say is a precursor to good fine motor development. So it actually helps you. It's going to help your baby in school, preschool, by doing this kind of activity. It's such a simple thing, but we don't realize how much our muscles are activated and controlled by gravity and by activation. So we're gonna help, and this is also gonna help get stronger tummy muscles into the core. Okay, so they'll do like a nice little weight shift. And then if you look at this little doll here, my little baby doll, Emma, you're going to see, that nice hip flexion that they are in here. So what's going to happen here is we're going to have a nice stretch on that hip flexor too, which is important for, again, the coming developmental steps of sitting and standing, weight bearing, and then eventually walking. Okay, so all of these things are really important to start your baby's life with. You also, a different position, think about this now. Think about this when you roll here to this here, you're also stimulating the balance center in the inner ear. So all of this, what you think is just kind of a minor position change, really stimulates the brain. It helps with your balance muscle, your balance mechanisms in your inner ear and your lower part of your brain and your brain stem, the muscles in your hands. You're also getting some nice, good pressure on your shoulders. So if you lay on your tummy for a while, what happens? You kind of get a little tired in your shoulders. So that's kind of activating all these muscles that stabilize the shoulder as well. So we're getting all that nice muscle movement and activation. We're also getting a good stretch on your tummy muscles here. So what that means is when the baby is on his or her back, they're going to be able to activate and do this. So we're getting some good input into these tummy muscles when we have them on their tummy, okay? And this is all stuff that you can kind of feel. You probably didn't even, if you've never been around a baby, this might be all new information. If this is your second baby, you can kind of think back on your first baby and say, I remember seeing this. I remember them going through all these little stages. But having that explanation kind of helps as to why they're doing it and why it's important. By 3 or 4 months, if we keep doing consistent tummy time work, we're going to see what we call like a nice weight shift. The baby's going to go weight shift onto this side and this side. So we're going to get some nice activation into the side body here, and more pressure and strength on this side and this side. So then what's going to happen eventually is they're going to push off with the one arm and they're going to roll. So rolling is a really important developmental milestone for babies because it does so much to improve their postural muscles. And again, this is what all these babies need for standing and eventually walking. And crawling. Well, crawling first, obviously. We do want them to crawl. Okay, so we got a very sleepy baby here. This is Big Emma. So we've got all of this nice stuff going on here with the tummy time. Okay, now what I want to go off and talk to you about is how to do this, because when you've got this little tiny baby you bring home from the hospital, it's like really kind of scary to put them on their tummies, because sometimes they don't have the head strength and neck strength to lift their heads up and turn their heads from side to side. Again, you only do this when your baby's awake, and a good time to do this is not right after a feed, maybe 20 minutes after a feed, because you don't want to put that pressure on their tummies because they may spit up the feed. So wait and let's see if they're still awake. You know, we want them in a nice, good, active, alert state. Let's go over how to start doing tummy time when you have a newborn who's very young, just a few days old, or whenever you come home from the hospital. So you can start either by sitting in a chair or laying on the couch. You're probably going to be tired, so you're probably going to do the couch. Just prop yourself up with some pillows, so where you get like a 45-degree angle, or you could go a little bit lower. And just put the baby on your chest, and you get that nice bonding pressure on their tummies here. So what you want to do is, again, make sure your baby's awake, not asleep, because they're just going to lie there. They're not going to look at you. But, you know, talk to your baby, sing, get their attention, and see if you can get some momentary head raising like this. And if they're eventually going to only hold it for just a few seconds and turn their head, but see if you can get them to do it again and maybe turn their head to the other side. And if you really, as the baby gets a little stronger, you can totally lay flat and see, because then you've got gravity totally working against their little neck muscles, and see if you can do this for just a little bit. And you know, they're going to get tired very easily. So this is a good way to introduce tummy time, because you've got them on your chest, and it's just not so hard, like a hard surface. They've got you to snuggle up. Plus, it's a great way to bond with your baby. And then when the baby's a couple of months old, you can start by putting a nice cushy or nice blanket flat. We don't want any quilts or anything thick like a mattress. Putting them on the floor. You can also find a pillow, a nice, like a kidney-shaped pillow like this, helps support their chest. And you can put your baby like so, to where this is under their chest, and let their arms come free like this. And so what you want to do is make it very interesting for them to go on the floor to look around. So they're going to be, you can either go in front of them, if you have another child, they can come and talk to them or sing to them. Put some interesting colors like a black and white, red, very bright colors out here of a mat. I'm going to show you some examples of some toys that I'm recommending too in just a few minutes. And then just let the baby just hold his head up or her head up for momentarily, and eventually they're going to be not so flexed here. They're going to be pushing their arms out like this, and maybe even, you know, tapping, reaching, or whatever, like that, like so. So this is a nice way to introduce tummy time. I know I get questions from moms all the time about how often to do it. I say aim for every day, and I know life happens. You're busy, you've got other children, or you're just trying to catch up on your sleep. I certainly understand that. But I would aim for 2 to 3 times a day at 3 to 5 minutes to start with, okay? Work up to 10 minutes for the first month. And then eventually, you know, when the babies are really good and good extensor muscles here and able to lift their head up, and you're going to see some starting to roll, you know, you can do longer times as tolerated again. Now, I'll warn you, most babies, especially when they're used to being on their backs, and we didn't see this, I didn't see this with my children because they were on their tummies to sleep. They're not used to this position and they don't like it. So I get the comments all the time from moms, but he cries and I have to stop because he's crying. And yes, I understand that, but this is something that's really important. Eventually they'll stop crying. And even, you know, what you can do, and this is what I've shown other moms, if they're crying, you know, sing to them, talk to them, pick them up, okay? Pick them up, kind of like get them all settled, and then put them slowly back down again. Or If they're crying, move them to their side and rock them a little bit and then go back to their tummy. So a position change is a good way to break that up so they're not overwhelmed with this position, because they're not going to like it. It's work. It's something they're not used to because they're mostly on their backs or sitting up in a container all the time, and they're gonna fuss. But I always encourage moms to hang in there, persevere, because you know this is something that you're doing for your child that's important for their development. So I think I've covered all the reasons. I want to also talk to you about some just recommendations for toys, because that's another question that I usually get from moms about how can I stimulate their development with different toys. I've got a couple of things to show you. First of all, this was the pillow. This was the one that I love this shape because it's perfect. You can use a small hand towel and roll it up and it'll do the same thing. So you don't have to go out and spend money on that. This was one of my granddaughters, and so my daughter loaned it to me. Well, she doesn't use it anymore because she's not a baby anymore. But this is a great mat, lots of bright colors, and then you've got things that you can suspend. So when they're done with their tummy time, you put them on their backs, and then you get some good focusing of their eyes, and they're looking at these cute little things hanging, and they also make noise. And so they can start doing, grabbing and reaching, which is what they're going to start doing in their, when they're lying flat. And we're going to start kicking, which is a great activity for to develop their abdominal muscles. So we're going to do some kicking and grabbing. So again, this is a nice washable mat. I think Target, Walmart, any place on the internet, I'm sure you could find something like this, very similar. Here's another version of a smaller one that you can attach little toys, rattles here. And this one actually props up like this. So when the baby's on their tummy, you can put a mirror here. That's a great thing to do. They can look at themselves, or you can put a toy here or whatever, but this is a little bit more portable and it's not as cumbersome putting this together or bringing this to someone's house as this. So I think we can get, small mirrors again are a great toy. Toys, again, babies aren't going to be able to actually openly grasp and release a toy when they're newborns, or even like a couple of months, they'll start doing it. So they really can't do much with their hands. So you can move them through the motion. You can bring their hands together and clap and do patty cake. You can have them touch your face. You can do a lot of good sensory input with their hands, because physically they're not able to do much fine motor wise with their hands. Lots of different ways you can play with them. It's never too early to let them look at a picture book. Very basic cardboard with lots of large bright colors. Language skills are developing at a very young age. So talk to your baby, read to them, sing to them. So it's never too early to start that. So another option for a toy or activity that you can do with your baby, this is an exercise ball. You can get it anywhere, Walmart, Target, whatever. And make sure it's not totally hard. Deflate it just a little bit so it's a little bit bouncier. This one was blown up a little bit too much. I would probably take a little air out of it. So when your baby's a little bit older, 4 or 5 weeks old, 6 weeks old, you can go ahead and do tummy time on the ball as well. So you can do this in front of a mirror, so you've got something for them to be motivated to look up at. You can do this in front of dad or mom or a relative or a sibling. And so you want to get the baby's attention to where he or she's going to just want to lift her head up a little bit. And we can also get some good propping this way. And what you want to do is slowly do some back and forth, head to toe, kind of stimulate. Again, what that movement does is stimulates the inner ear, and that also affects muscle tone too, believe it or not. All of that good brain work for the muscles, it's all connected. And you can go from side to side like this. Very, very small movement. You don't want to do a lot of heavy movement. That's going to scare them, or they're going to spit up, either one. So just some small, very small movements and get them used to this. So So this is another good activity you can do at home. Another way to adapt a tummy time position is on the ball. That kind of wraps up my presentation with this. Right now, I would have loved to have taken questions, but unfortunately I can't. But I hope you're all safe and well, and your babies are doing well, and we do miss you here. But hopefully in several months we might be able to get back together again. So that's it.